This is one of the scariest disappearances in Japanese history. So you guys know that I'm visiting Japan, so I wanted to tell you one of the scariest true time stories that I could find. And it was actually Shinra Makasa. Now Shinra actually disappeared in 1989, and it's called the 42nd disappearance. Him and his family were visiting their relatives out in the mountainous areas of Japan. It's in an area called the Tokushima Prefecture, which is actually really far away from any of the cities, and it's in a mountainous rural area, and coincidentally they were there for his grandmother's funeral. And that detail is actually very important because this might have a supernatural element involved, especially since people were upset over the passing of a loved one, and maybe her death left the gate open. Now, the reason why it is nicknamed the 42nd disappearance is because Shinra, his father, and his cousins had all gone for a morning hike around 8 a.m. Around 15 to 20 minutes later, they had returned to the residence. Shinra was upset and wanted to keep walking, but his father and his cousins and his other siblings went inside. The father was just going to hand off his younger sibling to the mother and then go back outside to force Shinra to come in. Shinra was right next to the porch of the front of the house. In this roughly 40-second time period, Shinra disappeared without a trace and has never been seen or heard from ever again. Now, Shinra was only 4 years old when this happened, and the dad actually got authorities involved immediately because they could not find him. There was an extensive search done of the woods, the mountains, and the surrounding village. Now, of course, the obvious answer would be, did the dad do something to him when they were on the hike? But the problem was his older cousins were there, his other siblings were there, family members were there, and there was absolutely no occurrence of any kind of violence or like anybody being upset besides the fact that Shinra did not want to stop hiking. So authorities thought maybe he ran off on his own. They brought out canines that could smell, they did an extensive search, and they could not find 4-year-old Shinra. So my first thought jumped to animals. Is there any kind of dangerous wildlife? And though a lot of people associate tigers with Japan, tigers are not in Japan. Actually, there's only 2 large predators in Japan, and they're both different species of bears. Now, one of the types of bears does not even live in this area of Japan. They are isolated on an island, but the other type of bear is called the Asiatic black bear. Now, the chances of running into an Asiatic black bear are extremely rare, considering they are critically endangered. Now, unlike North American black bear, though, Asiatic black bears are known to be highly aggressive, especially if they have their cubs with them, and they will chase you. So my first thought was, could he have had an unfortunate run-in with one of those right outside the house? And the answer is no. The attack would have left blood everywhere. There would have been dog tracks for sure, where the dog could have found the bear or found him. Also, an Asiatic black bear wouldn't have taken him out immediately where he wouldn't have been able to scream or yell for help or anything. The area is noticeably pretty quiet, unlike when you go to like Appalachia or different parts of North America where it's very loud in the woods and there's constant animal noises and a lot of, just noise in general. This area is noticeably quiet, so even if he'd have been far away, they should have been able to hear him scream. Now's where the case starts to take a turn for the darker. Roughly a few days after Shinra was missing, someone called the residence, the grandparents' house that they were visiting, and actually started asking about the cases. They said that they were the mother of Naraka, one of the preschool kids' parents that Shinra attended school with. She asked very detailed questions, and when the father that answered the phone was feeling uncomfortable about the phone call, he asked for more information on who she was, and she abruptly hung up. Police did look into this phone call, and they could not figure out where it came from. They also noticed that there was no girl named Naraka in his pre-K class, but the lady seemed to know intimate details about Shinra and his family. So was she an abductor? We don't know. And that's why it starts to turn to the paranormal, because Japanese phone numbers do not work the same way as here. There is no like public phone book for these areas out in the middle of nowhere. Phone numbers are very private, so really only family members or friends should have even had access to the phone number to that residence. Secondly, this is a very remote area and a very remote house. They would have heard a car come or go, and they saw no cars coming or going in that area that day, because this house was at the end of a dead-end street. Where Shinra is right next to it. It's very mountainous and hilly. You couldn't have gotten any kind of off-road vehicles away from there. If somebody did snatch him, they would have had to snatch him on foot, and they started searching for him immediately. Why didn't he scream? Why didn't he yell? Why was there no traces of another person? Why didn't the dog pick his scent up? Now we're going to get into the supernatural. Rumors started circulating about something that supernatural could have taken Shinra, such as a tengu, because you've heard me mention multiple times that he was in a mountainous area. Tengus are like a half bird, half man demon hybrid that supposedly live in isolation, kind of like a hermit up in the mountains. And they have been many of story of them taking children or women or people that were vulnerable, sick or weakly, that could not defend themselves properly, and actually devouring them. That would explain why the dog couldn't pick up his scent trail, because he was picked up and lifted into the mountains. Stories of the Tengu have been going around for thousands of years. They are mostly depicted as having a bird-like face or a face with an extremely long, narrow nose. Their skin is always either red or blue. They do have wings of various sizes. There are different types of Tengus, so the description could vary based on the type it is, but they're mostly malevolent. They're like never good. The next thing might not be a supernatural creature per se, but it could be a supernatural occurrence called being spirited away. Now, there is a Japanese movie you can watch. It does have an English adaptation called Spirited Away, and it is literally about the situation I'm about to describe. And it's when a human, mostly a child, is taken to a different world or a different realm. We have a story kind of like that in the United States called the Fae, being taken by the Fae or the fairy realm. Now, most of the time you are led to one of these realms by what's called a yokai, or another malevolent spirit of some kind that's mischievous or playing a trick that's luring the child to that area. And here's the funny part about being spirited away. It is almost always, when they talk about this happening, at the border of a forest or at the base of a mountain. And that's exactly where he was at. He was actually at both. There was a forest right at the base of a mountain where this home was. Being spirited away is a phenomenon that gets talked about over and over and over again in Japanese folklore and mythology. When they do come back from being spirited away, sometimes to them, no time has passed and people didn't even notice they were gone. Other times, they just never are seen again. The times that they do come back where like time seems to have stopped, they might have been spirited away for months or years, and then they come back and their family only notice them be gone for a few minutes. So do you think being spirited away is like a child's imagination? Because I don't. Because for thousands of years, many different children have been reporting the same phenomenon. They claim to get spirited away, and when they come back, they have these wild, fantastical stories about these other places where physics work completely different. And it's actually the inspiration to a lot of animes or isekais, or what they're called, is this phenomenon of being spirited away and the stories that people have told while they were gone in these realms. In the cases of being spirited away, there's an American movie that was made by like the Tim Burton, Henry Selick crew called Coraline, where there's another mother and it's a different world and it's a fake false reality, and they're trying to trick her into staying. This image right here is like kind of those entities that are the tricksters, the ones that are trying to take the soul and keep them there forever. So in Shinra's case, if he did get spirited away, it might have been one of those cases where he lost the game, he lost the gamble, because they mostly try to trick you. They can't just take you by force. There has to be some kind of game or gamble to it. That's the way their rules work. So was the trickster entity or the leader of this, fairy realm that he was in, was that who actually called the house? That's how she might have known those intimate details, because there is cases of when kids get spirited away that their families get contacted by supernatural entities. And I hope that Shinra's family finally gets answers one day. It has been many decades, but hopefully at some point in time, somebody might be able to find remains to identify, or we have somebody that confesses to doing it. Hopefully one day there is some kind of resolution. If you guys enjoyed this story, we do these kind of stories pretty much every day. This podcast that we have on Spotify and Apple Podcast is called Matt from Nomads. That's M-A-T-T from Nomads. And on YouTube, it's called Nomads Animal Reserve. Thank you. If you're not liking and following this page already, what are you waiting on?